Hey, what's up? It's Enrique. This is how to draw fantasy art. Today I'm going to go over how to draw the werewolf, or furry, or whatever you want to call it, anthro. For a lot of people call them different things. I want to go over a design very similar to kind of that movie Van Helsing, even though I hated that movie. I did like the werewolf design. So I'm going to go over, I'm going to focus on two distinct things today. I'm going to focus on structure, and I'm going to focus on refinement. Those two are really important in drawing. They're a little bit advanced concepts, but we'll get to them. And I'm going to go over my general process, for everything that I do pretty much, is I'm going to go over gesture, line, and value in that order. That's the way I do things. So I'm going to go over all that and more in this video. So stay tuned after the intro. Thanks. Alright, let's get into it. Right now I'm using Photoshop CS5. For anybody that's wondering, doesn't matter, you can use any kind of Photoshop. I'm also using a Wacom tablet. That's pretty much necessary for just drawing and painting on the internet. So right now I'm going into the gesture, and by gesture, gesture is another word for position. Just the pose. The pose of the drawing that you have, the flow. Where the spinal cord is, that's the way I consider it. When you get to a certain point, the gestures that I'm doing, and then other guys are doing, they're just like, they look like this. I just throw in the spinal column, and I throw in where the shoulders are going to be, because I'm going to be drawing him, I'm going to be drawing or painting him from the waist up. So I'm looking at the angles of the shoulder, the tilt of the shoulders, and I am looking into where the spine is going to be, which is going to dictate how his torso is positioned. So this, I'm going to blast right through the gesture. But gesture is very important. Pick the pose. It just so happens that I picked the pose really quick, and it is just as messy as this. When I do it, I'm going right through it really fast. If you have any question on gesture, comment below. And I want to put them into a video for you guys. So please comment below, questions, everything, and I'm going to throw them into a video. Alright guys, next part. Alright, line art. This is the part where most people start at. And you shouldn't do that. See how I have a light framework underneath that? I don't have to guess the positioning to anything, because I have that layer, that gesture underneath to kind of look at. And it's almost like a cheat code, on like a video game system. I'm going right into the eyes, and I'm going into the head first, because for any kind of figure, monster, whatever, I always start at the head. Always. Because that's usually going to be the focal point, and I might as well get that part out of the way first. Also, it's a good place to start, because then it'll kind of, I can show how the rest of the body relates to it. This is real time right now. This is actually the same speed I'm doing it at. I'm going into the eyes, checking out the angles. I want to make him look a little angry, right? Because he's gonna be a little angry. Werewolves are not nice normally. Going to the mouth here, kind of making a silly grin that I used to draw at SeaWorld a lot. Kind of all this training. This is kind of where I feel where I wouldn't say the purest form of your drawing comes out, but it's close. This is where your know-how. You're like, okay, I'm drawing fuzz here, fur. But it's still generally loose. I'm being very loose, because I have done other exercises that were super tight, and that's fine. And tight drawings, that's what's gonna help you. But after a while, you start to combine different parts of what you know, and going back and forth between one step to the other. Going into the ear, this requires knowledge of like wolf anatomy, things I've observed. It's kind of all going through my head at one time. I'm going through the back. I'm trying to blend a wolf's head with a human body. And usually the transition, which is the neck, that's where things are kind of abnormal and different, I feel. This is just my opinion. I could be talking garbage, but that's just an opinion I have. Alright, going into the teeth. I'm putting them all individually right now, to kind of putting in the tongue. I'm going back into the face a little bit, going up and down, viewing it. I'm trying to see how it would proportionally work out. I don't want to make his head too big. Going down to the neck column, And this part right here, this is essentially right now what I'm doing, the pectoralis. This is all just human anatomy, straight out right now, is what I'm thinking. I'm trying to see, I'm trying to flesh out more where the hand is going to be, because even with the gesture, I didn't put the hand. This is almost like a, you could even call this a tighter gesture, but I call it really the line art stage where I'm going in with that. And I'm going in, you have to realize how messy I'm going in. I wouldn't do this as a new person to drawing. I would never do this as a new to drawing, because then you wouldn't know what to do. You wouldn't be able to figure it out. I mean, you wouldn't be able to figure out this mess. This looks like a big jumbled mess if I didn't know how to draw at all, or you're just starting. It's not a good idea. And I'm going to show that in another video, the clean way to do it. Sorry, but this is for just the way I do things. This is just, and I don't mean to say that. I don't mean to make that sound bratty, but I'm saying this is just how I usually do things. I'll do them a little messier than normal. Value. Imagine your white drawing fell in the dirt. It now has value on it. Value is the amount of white or dark on a page as relating to something else. But 9 out of 10 times when I've used value, when someone refers to it, they're talking about the darks specifically. So if I say, I'm going to throw some values on this page, I'm usually talking about darker values, you know. And there's a value scale you can learn from, and I'll slap it up here. That's something you should go over, but it's not 100%. I mean, it is 100% necessary. I would go over that later, and I'll actually do a separate video for that as well. But for now, when I use the word value, I mean the darks when I say the value. I go lower value, higher value. Higher value would be lighter, lower value would be darker. I'm going into the background, chopping up a few things. Alright, going into the background here, fixing things up, getting the edges the way I want them to. And that leads us into color. The color I'm kind of lightly keeping in the back of my head through this thing. The reason is it's so desaturated. Desaturated meaning there's just not a lot of, you know, the red isn't really that red. It's more maroon. It's more of a darker grayish maroon. If you look at the color scale, I'm going very cold with my colors. I'm using more purples and blues. When you look at the color scale, the warmer colors are obviously more yellow, reds, oranges, and then the cooler colors are green, purple, blue, and these have a purpose in the drawing. I just want to use colder colors because I feel they look very cool, and I like that. I usually use cooler colors in everything I do. Changing the positioning of the arm. Alright, from here on to the rest of the picture, there's actually only two things that go through my head, and I'm going to go over them really quick. It's the refinement and the structure. Those two, I go back and forth in my mind thinking about those two things. By refinement, I mean smoothing things out. You know, kind of making things prettier. If I know the position of that nose already, and I know the angles for it, I'm just going to kind of like brush it with, you know, slightly softer brush. Try to make it blend into the rest. I'm going to, you know, cut that line out, you know, lighten that line, lighten this shape. But I'm thinking about in a refinement aspect, you know. I'm like not even thinking as much anymore, really. And then by structure, I'm talking about, you know, I'm going back through and shaping things up. I'm thinking in 3D. I'm really thinking about how things go back into space, you know, when I talk about structure, how he sits into space, how much he weighs probably, you know, if he's standing right, if he's balanced. Those things are structure, you know, like a building. You're structuring a building. Right now I'm going to the structure of the hand. Really quick though, to go over the hand, I don't want to go over the whole thing. There's a separate video for that, but for the hand, one of the things I always have in my mind when I'm drawing any hand is that the hand's middle knuckle is the highest, and they all kind of recede from that middle knuckle. I always think about that when I'm drawing any hand. So just try to remember that, and kind of ingrain that into your mind, and that's always helped me do these things. I would highly recommend you remember that. And he's got some big old mitts too, some kind of going into the lighting. Lighting is also something that you think about. Almost everything is done from a kind of one or two lighting point of view. The light is clearly coming from the top, going down, kind of at this particular angle here. Going back in again. I'm just refining right here. Right here, I'm thinking about anatomy, but honestly, I'm just refining. Refining. That means when I say refining, I mean I'm really not thinking that hard. Structure takes a lot more thought, for me anyway, than refinement. Going back into the background. And I want to put a moon back there to kind of raise the contrast of the whole thing. Contrast is the difference between light and dark. So if something's high contrast, that means, like, for example, here's a high contrast picture right here, and here's a low contrast. Meaning the light and the dark are way far away from each other. So that's what I'm trying to do here within the whole thing, is I'm trying to make it a little more high contrast, and I'm even putting a back light. They call that a rim light. The light from the behind, and is causing a little rim of light along him, and I'm just trying to decide where I want that rim. Throwing in some clouds in the back is kind of an afterthought. I'm just gonna make him seem like something behind him, and to kind of make that work. And at this point right here, I'm fiddling with the whole thing. I'm just going back, passing through. Alright, golden rule of the day. If you were to remember one thing after watching this video, I would remember this one thing, and keep it in your mind always. I'm going to have one of these per video. Think in 3D. Think in 3 dimensions. I know it sounds crazy, and it sounds almost stupid easy, right? But a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people, they kind of just think of it as this flat object. They're not thinking about the roundness that, let's say, the forearm there would have. You know, they're not thinking about the roundness of the shoulder, the angularity of the wrist. You know, how it would go behind there. Think of this as a real, like, sculpture almost that you're trying to expose on paper. So think in 3D, think in rounds, and think in, you know, cylinders, and really think like that. Make your whole process like that, and you will vastly improve. So the werewolf is one of my favorite characters, actually, from cinema, and I love the way they're making these movies with, you know, having more werewolves in them. I know vampires are the fad right now, and zombies are really becoming the fad as well. Werewolves kind of have a few movies, but not really. But I love the design to most of the werewolves I've seen. I cater more to the ones that have more of an animalistic face, as opposed to the ones that have more of a human face. I feel that's more of a vampire territory. So I love drawing this. Please do me a favor. Go downstairs here, look down, comment. Please comment. Give me questions of what you want. I'm going to do more elaborate video. I'm going to go way more in depth on my videos now. I'm taking this more serious, and I'm still learning how to really verbalize what I'm thinking in my mind. And I love feedback. Share this video on your Facebook or any network that you are capable of doing. Happy drawing, guys.